The Autoimmune Connection is a web series dedicated to all things autoimmune, with hosts Christina Feindel of A Clean Plate, Emma King of The Bacon Mum, Kate J. of Healing Family Eats, and Rory Linehan of The Paleo PI, interviewing new guests every episode. We're bringing patients, practitioners, friends, and family together to connect the dots between diet, lifestyle, and autoimmune disease. Hey everyone, and welcome to the second season of the Autoimmune Connection. I'm Christina Feindel from acleanplate.com, and I'm a Hashimoto's and celiac patient who works for Sarah Ballantyne, the Paleo Mom, and has been food blogging for about 10 years now. Last year, I got together with a lot of great people from the autoimmune blogging community and had some wonderful discussions that were streamed live to YouTube. This season, the Autoimmune Connection is taking a huge leap forward and kicking things up a notch. I've invited my three guests tonight to be co-hosts on the show. First of all, I'm just so thrilled that we're together going to be able to host more discussions, interview more people, get more information out there, and have a much wider pool of talents and experiences and perspectives to explore. So each of us will be taking turns hosting episodes, and you can expect to see a new show on YouTube pretty much every week. I'm super excited. I'm so grateful to the community for making this possible. With Kate's culinary background and Emma as a health coach and Rory's intense investigative experience with his own health, I think we make a really well-rounded team, and I'm super excited. I want to thank all of you guys for joining me in this adventure and for being here tonight to introduce yourselves. Emma, I'm so excited to have a health coach on the team, and you also have some technical skills that I think are really going to help punch this show up a notch. Would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself to everybody and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure, and thank you for inviting me to be part of it. Yes, I am Emma King. I blog as The Bacon Mom, and my journey with autoimmune disease kind of kicked off when I was about 13 years old, so I believe there's some puberty kind of triggers there for me. And I really have had a roller coaster of symptoms, and being 43 in those days, there really wasn't a lot of help for me. So I definitely went through a myriad of symptoms and diagnoses and tests and more tests. And, I established just after my daughter was born that I got finally a label, so to speak, that I had RA. But I had originally sort of gone through chronic fatigue syndrome and myalgic encephalomyelitis, as it's known in the UK, as you can probably tell. I'm from England, but I actually live in Chicago. And when my daughter was born, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and that's really where my journey with paleo started. And I've been on the autoimmune protocol for just over a year and just reaped so many benefits. It's been phenomenal, and so many people were reaching out to me with regards to my own journey and asking me a lot of questions that I wanted to be more qualified in my feedback to people. And so I actually graduated just recently from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition as a health coach. And just to add to that, my daughter also follows the autoimmune protocol. She has behavioral issues onset by food, and it's borderline autism spectrum, and we're finding great relief using the autoimmune protocol for that. So that's all about me.
Kate was one of the bloggers that I worked with creating the Paleo Approach Dinner Club for Sarah Ballantyne last year, and her recipes and photography just absolutely blew me away. Everything she does looks so professional and wonderful, and I highly recommend everybody go check out her website if you're not already familiar with it, as soon as the show's over, of course. Kate, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I just want to say also I'm super excited to be here. I've just literally walked in the door from seeing my very first functional practitioner, so I feel like my health journey is taking a new path now. I'm actually hoping that I've achieved such a lot since I started on the AIP, which I'll mention in a moment, but I feel that he's going to finish those jigsaw pieces for me. That's what I'm hoping for. So anyway, I'm Kate J, and I write the blog healingfamilyeats.com. It's a recipe blog. It's the food that I'm feeding my family because they're on this journey with me as well. We started off on the GAPS diet, actually, just over 2 years ago now. And it was great. It was really helping our digestive issues, which we knew we had problems that needed addressing, not to mention Candida as well. Our levels for that were extremely high. But it wasn't really doing everything for me, because last year I noticed that I had swelling in my thumb joints and on my wrists, and also sensitivity in my ankles. And my paternal grandmother had very, very serious severe rheumatoid arthritis. I remember her as a very young child in constant pain, and when I saw my swelling, I thought, oh, here we go. And went straight off to the doctor and told him my family history, and I had a variety of tests. I had x-rays in my hands and some blood tests and rheumatoid factor as well, and was told that you've got repetitive strain injury, you're fine, you've got nothing, go, keep calm and carry on. Keep the British stiff upper lip and go away. So I did, and I got straight on the internet, of course, and that's when I found out about the AIP, which I'm totally addicted to, and I'm now on this mission to make sure that everybody hears about it and you know, jumps on board with us. So yeah, I'm very super excited to be here.
Awesome.
To spread the word.
Yeah. Awesome. Last but not least, I first encountered Rory in my capacity as Sarah's assistant when he wrote an excellent guest post for us on working with a healthcare provider. His emails have always been so warm and friendly and enthusiastic, and I knew that when I started the Autoimmune Connection, I would have to have him on someday. And so he appeared on an episode last fall and was predictably delightful. So Rory, I'm so glad to have you aboard. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, very happy to be here, and as Christina said, I've been on one episode before, but delighted to be able to share with Emma, Kate and Christina hosting duties of the Autoimmune Connection. Wanted to say straight up that I love all the accents on here. It's so amazing. I think we've got Australian to British, American, so it's got a very international flavour. And I also want to excuse everybody in the audience for having to look at me in a tie and all dressed up. I'm straight off to my 9 to 5 after this, so I promise I'm not normally like this. So I guess for me, as Christina said, I explained a little bit about my diagnosis or lack of diagnosis last time I was on the show. I blog at the Paleo PI, which is a website dedicated to uncovering the root cause of chronic disease with a focus on autoimmune disease. My personal story is that I don't have a diagnosis of anything specific, but I suspect I've got an autoimmune disease. My symptoms improved greatly once I got on the paleo autoimmune protocol about 18 months ago, and I used the Paleo PI to basically to blog my journey, but then also to uncover facts and information behind certain chronic illnesses. And yeah, I guess that's a good intro, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you all so much for joining the team. I'm really looking forward to seeing what everyone does this season. For my part, I know in the past that I've always been really focused on just eating well as quickly as possible and getting on with my life, and I haven't really been very hung up on the emotional aspects of life with autoimmune disease. So this year, I'm really looking forward to talking some more about the interpersonal stuff, like navigating a job or maintaining a healthy relationship when you just don't feel good and have this huge diet and lifestyle change to contemplate. So that's me. What kind of things are you guys looking forward to exploring this year?
I'm really looking forward to exploring everyone's journeys, all of the people that we're going to be interviewing, understanding their journeys, understanding how they manage their stress, how they stay motivated, how they manage their functional doctor experience or their conventional doctor experience. So I think it's going to be really insightful and supportive to the community as a whole, that we all have these struggles, but there are ways to overcome them.
Pretty much echoing what Emma's just said, actually, but because I've just seen this practitioner, I'm very interested to know whether the sort of testing that I'm being advised to have is what everybody else's practitioners have advised them to have as well. It's a minefield, and of course there's a cost issue that goes with it too. But he seems like he's on the ball, so I think we're going to get on just fine. He knew all about GATS and the AIP, so that was a good start as far as I'm concerned. But also stress management, that's something really big for me. I've got 2 children. I've got a 14-year-old son who is giving me the most monumental challenges. And so, you know, not just stress management having a teenager, but having a teenager following the AIP, or me serving up food to a teenager on the AIP, and hoping that I can keep him on the straight and narrow. That's what I'm interested in. If anyone else has got the same sort of stories to tell. Exercise is another thing that I know that I need to incorporate into my lifestyle big time. I think I've cracked the food. It's all the other things that I'm interested to hear what other people are doing. Yeah, I think, and also, I mean, the major big thing, which I'll talk about later, is thyroid issues, which is actually what I'm going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. So I'm super excited about that, because that's something that's very close to home.
Very interesting listening to what both Emma and Kate, and you have to say, Christine, because I'm very similar as to what I'm interested in as well. I love hearing other people's stories that are on this journey, because a lot of us go through the same things, and maybe in our day-to-day lives, the interactions that we have, people don't quite understand what it is to go through life with a chronic illness. I take the example, I was out with friends the other week, and they were all drinking, and I'm quite happy not to drink, but they just kept pushing and pushing. But I felt like, you know, if they knew what it was like for me when I drank and the symptoms that I had afterwards, that they wouldn't. And so when people, when I'm able to connect with people such as yourselves and the wider audience, it's good to be able to share those stories and have people understand that. So I'm looking forward to listening and learning from all of you and our guests as well. And then outside of that, I love spending time in nature, and anytime I can get to do that, I want to do it more. So I'm hoping to focus on that this year. So whether that be getting more vitamin D, doing more walks outside, or just learning the science behind why it is important to spend time outside, which can be quite difficult for an autoimmune or a paleo blogger, because we spend so much time behind the computers. And I know a lot of us have jobs already, and you know, in most of our jobs we're spending that time behind the computer as well, so it's a bit of a challenge for us. So I'm looking forward to sharing tips on how to spend more time outside.
Viewers can hear from Rory and from me in previous episodes what our health journeys were like and how we wound up where we are today. And I wanted to take this opportunity to invite Emma and Kate to share a little bit more about where they've been and how they're doing now.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it in my intro, but you know, at 13 years old, I actually was in a wheelchair. I couldn't get up, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move around. My dad used to pick me up out of bed in the morning and carry me downstairs, and I literally would sit there all day and then be carried back upstairs to bed at night. And it was a pretty tough experience at the age of 13 to kind of go through that. I missed a good section of school, and oddly enough, we found a doctor at the time who was considered to be, you know, a whack job, you know, and he recommended restricting food. And oddly enough, you know, back then, you know, my mum, I could hardly swallow, I had no voice, I used to have to ring a bell for my mum to kind of know that I needed help to the bathroom or whatever. And he recommended actually a chicken, rice and sweet corn diet, which, you know, at the time, I mean, what I now think of a healing diet, that's not it, but it really helped. And I was also on spinach, and my mum used to blend it for me so that I could eat it. It was kind of like baby food. And after about 6 weeks of being on that diet, you know, I got out of bed one day and I walked downstairs, and my mum just cried. I mean, she couldn't believe it. I mean, she'd been tearing her hair out. The internet wasn't there at that time. She didn't know really what to do. And, you know, my lifestyle kind of went back to being a normal kid. I went back to school, I did my exams, I went to college, and, you know, I started to hang out in pubs and drink and, you know, just be a standard sort of like 18, 19-year-old, and then I crashed again. And, that I kind of went in this kind of pattern, and I started to look at things like astrology. Is it a 7-year kind of situation that I'm dealing with? And I went down so many different pathways, and I found kinesiology, which is functional doctor type experience, and established again that I was allergic to certain foods, and gluten came out and wheat came out, and I went down this journey, got myself well again, and then at the age of 26 crashed again, and it literally was like this 7-year cycle. But I continued to do really well in my career. I think the fact that I'd been so debilitated drove me even harder, and which is the worst thing you can kind of do for autoimmune, as we now know, driving yourself hard. But I worked crazy hours, and in fact did that up until about 18 months ago, to be honest, just working crazy hours. I'm a single mum, I have a job, sometimes there is no one else to help out. You have to do what you have to do. And so, I continued down that pathway, and I really got into food being sort of the trigger. And so I've been gluten-free for 10 years, really driving that. But as more and more research came out, I went down the paleo pathway, and because I had a weakened immune system when that mosquito flew past and decided to bite my ankle in 2007, and I contracted West Nile virus, it was one of those scenarios where I just, I said, of course, that mosquito had to find me, and so I went through another round. I've spent time in intensive care. I've had quite the run of it medically, but all the time, the functional doctor has really been my savior. And so it's really been a great healer for me, the combination of food. And I know how much lifestyle is also a contributing factor. But, it's like peeling an onion. And when you're peeling the onion, you kind of get to the next layer of what the next problem is. And that's kind of been my journey. And really, since I found the autoimmune protocol, I've been really able to really drill down into what my key triggers are. And, being a single mom and having a daughter that, I've passed on some of my genes to, I've also gone down the pathway of looking at MTHFR. I have the worst combination possible. And unfortunately, I have passed that combination on to my daughter. And, I'm currently on the pathway myself of trying to understand how I can manage that myself. But also, she's 6. I want to make sure that, from now on out, she's having the right supplements in the right way, and eating the right foods, and getting the right folates, and having the right methylation in order to not be impacted the way I have. So I'm thankful for everything that's out there, and that's really why I wanted to become a health coach and a blogger, because I want to share my journey in the hope that if I help one person, I'm in a far happier place.
That is incredible, actually, because my story, I can't top that one, I'm afraid. My health journey, I kind of ambled along for many years. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism about 15, 16 years ago. And I remember at the time the doctor told me he was staggered that I had this diagnosis because I wasn't exhibiting many of the symptoms. I was feeling cold and dry skin, but I wasn't overweight, and I didn't have anything major going on to speak of. But I was aware that I had thyroid issues, or some kind of issues that needed addressing anyway, because I went to cooking school, and we cooked with quite heavy copper pans. And halfway through the course, I started feeling that I couldn't control them anymore, and I was finding I couldn't lift them with one hand. I needed two hands to hold them, and at times I even dropped them, and they're quite heavy things. So it was quite something. So I was wondering what was going on. I thought I had repetitive strain injury, which seems to be a running theme in my life. But I was reading the Sunday papers, and there was an article from a lady who was writing that she was just about to undergo surgery for carpal tunnel syndrome, when somebody had pointed out that she really ought to have her thyroids looked at. And I thought, yeah, it's got to be me, because my mother was hypothyroid as well. I understood it was, a genetic disease, and that, yeah, I guess it's my turn. It's my time, I'll go and sort it out. So I went to the doctor, got my diagnosis, was given a prescription for thyroxine, told to go away and take it every day, and that's exactly what I did. And now I'm kicking myself, because all these years later I'm thinking, well, nobody mentioned to me that there was a possibility that there could be an autoimmune connection. Nobody told me how important the thyroid gland is to the working of your body as a whole. And I'd never even heard of the word Hashimoto's until a year or two. So I just went away and took my pill and got on with life, really. But I say that I ambled along because I didn't really have any major issues. But it was when I gave birth to our first child that everything suddenly changed. My hormones went into complete overdrive, and all the energy that I had before just suddenly went. And I thought that it was probably, I'm a new mum, and it's all a shock to the system, and once I've got my life sorted out with having a young child, then everything will be fine and get back to normal. And it just never did. And I don't think I ever got that energy back that I'd had pre-birth. So another thing is my hair was starting to fall out. It wasn't coming out in clumps. It was very subtle, actually, but I noticed that the hairbrush was probably a little bit fuller than it should have been, so that was an issue as well. But I've also got other thyroid symptoms, like I know nobody mentioned to me at the time, but I now know I've got, some very thin, sparse eyebrows. That's very typical of thyroid issues, and my eyelashes are very non-existent, pretty much, and dry skin, and so on and so forth. So I've got all the thyroid issues, which I still have, I have to say, even though I've been taking thyroxine for 15 years or so, which is why I know that they're not actually doing me an awful lot of good. So I'm hoping to address that. But I ambled along, but the crescendo in my life and my health journey happened 6 years ago, because my brother died of stomach cancer. And from the difference in time between him being diagnosed with cancer and him actually dying was 5 weeks. And it still is very shocking, but at the time it was just monumental. And not just for me, but for my parents as well. It was just the most shocking thing. It was just as if we'd been run over or hit by a train. And the intensity of those 5 weeks was something that I obviously had never experienced before, and I hope never to experience again. But I know for a fact that it was those weeks that actually was the turning point for me in my health, because it declined rapidly. In fact, before I'd even left the hospice for that final time, I was showing symptoms of something quite, major, maybe, that was going on inside my body. For instance, my hips just completely seized up. I was in such pain. I was sitting around for long periods of time, and then when I suddenly stood up, I had this terrible pain, and I had to walk it out. It was real joint stiffness, and that was quite worrying. But then I had pains in my feet. I developed heart palpitations. I started having panic attacks. I had what else did I have? I had I've completely lost my train of thought, actually, because I was thinking about that. But I was getting dizziness. I was getting brain fog. I was feeling neurotic. actually that was the major thing. My stress levels were going very, very high, because it suddenly occurred to me that my brother had died at such a young age that it was no longer a given that I would, you know, die in my sleep a very happy, very old lady one day. And that was very worrying for me, and I began to get very neurotic, which is something I've never been in my past. So you know, I was not in a good place. And then in 2012, my husband's job changed completely, and we moved from London out to Vancouver in Canada, which is where I am now. And so the idea that we were selling our home, I was leaving my friends, I was leaving my grieving parents, because effectively I'm an only child now. It was very, very stressful for me, but we, you know, packed up and we came to Canada. And everything's, you know, we're having a good life out here, but I still feel very guilty about the fact that I have my family back home and they're there and I'm here, so that's not easy. So after the doctor incident that I told you about earlier, I got onto the internet, and I knew that there was something I could do. I knew in my heart of hearts that there was something going on. It wasn't repetitive strain injury. So I started researching rheumatoid arthritis, started researching autoimmune disease, and I came across Mickey Trescott's blog, the autoimmunepaleo.com. And she won't want to hear this, I'm sure, but she was, and she still is, my heroine, because she was my first introduction into the AIP. And it suddenly occurred to me that actually there is something that you can do about your life. You don't have to just sit there waiting for your health to decline. You can take control of it, and it's never too late as well. And what's more, you don't have to use drugs in which to do it. And also, she gave me hope. And I know it sounds a cliche, but it's perfectly true. When you're starting to feel desperation as to what might become of your life and your health, you reach out, and she was there. And it was perfect timing, actually, because that was in March last year, and it was only about 3 weeks before she brought out her cookbook, the Autoimmune Paleo Cookbook. And I remember getting really excited about that and counting the days until it was being released. And for those people who don't know, Vancouver's on the border of the States. And so on the day of the release, my husband very sweetly drove across the border for me and bought me this book from from Washington, and Washington State, and he brought it back, and that was, the rest is history. I saw this and I thought, you know what, yeah, I'm going to have a piece of that. So we started up with the AIP, and my family were resisting, obviously, big time. It's so typical of me. It's either all or nothing, and I suddenly decided that we've all got digestive issues. I don't want my family, my husband, which I'll just mention, does have what we now know as a few autoimmune issues. But my children, you know, with their gut issues, I was absolutely adamant that I didn't want them to be following a path to autoimmune issues or, you know, bad health in their future. So I was going to stop that for them right now. So we all embarked on the AIP. And my way, I suppose Healing Family Eats was born really because it was my way of keeping going with providing them with different food, nourishing food, something exciting and something new every day, as opposed to falling back on the same old, which would have bored all of us. And my children, they love food, and obviously they're kids, and so they want to be eating all the rubbish that their friends are eating at home and taking out of their lunch boxes. And I can't compete with the likes of, I don't know, these goldfish crackers, whatever they are, and, you know, and s'mores cookies and cones and things. I can't do that. So I'm on a mission to try and serve up, you know, some good, healthy, but the odd treats to them as well, so they're not missing out as much as they think. And I think well, I know they appreciate it. They still miss all the rubbish that they can't have, but they certainly appreciate the good food they're getting.
Before we wrap things up today, I wanted to do a quick icebreaker to kind of get to know everyone better, and also give our viewers a little bit more insight into who we are aside from our diseases and our blogs. So I asked everyone to prepare 5 fun facts about themselves, And I thought we could go ahead and share those real quick right now.
Okay, so I've got 5 facts. I hope that they'll be fun. The first one is that not many people know, but I used to live in French Canada. So I lived in Montreal for the better part of 2 years, and I speak French. So one day I'm hoping to get my act together and put some French information out on the blog too. So if there are any francophone viewers out there, bonjour, et un jour je vais le faire, je vous promets. So that's the first thing. The second is, not surprisingly, I guess, but I love traveling. Big fan of traveling. And I think a lot of us in the autoimmune community, I don't know what it is, but a lot of us have traveled. Obviously, Kate and Emma, you're living in different countries, and I've heard a lot of stories about people traveling. And so my goal in the next couple of years is to move to the US. So that's something I haven't shared publicly yet, so it might even be a surprise to my family if they're listening. So yeah, I'm working towards that. I think it'll just be for a couple of years, but it's just such a hub of innovation, creativity, and also the birthplace of paleo. So I'm really looking forward to exploring that some more. And then the third thing is an addiction I think I share with a couple of other people. I'm addicted to Game of Thrones, man. I can't get enough of it. Such a good TV show. I heard that the next season's coming out in April, but I literally cannot talk about it because every time I talk about it, I'm like, where is it? Where is it? I get all upset that it's not here. So it's a big addiction of mine, and I'm trying to work through that. Also a big fan of House of Cards, so I think that's coming out later this month, so hopefully that will fill the time between now and Game of Thrones. Fourth, I played Australian football for 10 years, and most people are going to be like, what is Australian football? That is a very good question. It is played on a cricket oval, and I hope most people have an understanding of cricket, but maybe not. A big round oval, and basically there's 4 sticks at either end of the field, and the goal is to kick a football, I guess like in American football you'd call it punt, maybe, to the other end of the oval and kick them through the 2 large sticks in the middle. So if anyone wants to have a good laugh, type in on YouTube Australian football, and you can see exactly what it is. It's very popular down here, so for the Australian audience, I'm sure you already know what that is. And then lastly, I have a hidden talent. Now, this hidden talent, I am yet to meet anyone else that has the same talent, and I challenge you, Christina, Emma, and Kate, to try my hidden talent. So I'm going to show you what it is. Prepare to have your minds blown, everybody. I can actually fold my tongue back on itself. Wah! Ready? So yeah. I'm hoping it works. My camera. Oh. Anyone else? Can you guys fold your tongue back on yourselves?
No.
No, I need my teeth for that.
Yes, well, that actually is a good thing for me because I feel like I still am the only person with this talent. So if anyone else has that talent out there, I'm more than willing to be challenged, but I think I've got everybody's measure on that.
Do you do that a lot in public, Rory?
Well, when people ask me what my hidden talent is, I feel like I have to share my talents with the world.
Right, okay.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was fantastic. Emma, you want to go next?
How do I follow that? All right, 5 fun facts about me. When I turned 30, I decided that I needed to see the world, and so I sold my house and I packed up. I put everything in storage and I headed off around the world for 365 days. I did it in 2001, and it was only 11 days after I left that 9/11 happened. And so on the journey, I saw the world change. And it was quite the revelation. Sadly, I saw, British and US flags being burnt in Muslim countries, and I kind of had to change the direction that I was traveling in as a result of, some of the unrest. I really got to see a phenomenal world that we live in. And Rory, I totally connected with nature. And you know, I went from a very connected life. I work in the IT world, and you know, I was on a cell phone and a pager and a desk phone and everything, and I went away, and you know, I used to have to pay to find an internet station. I mean, imagine that. So that was a really cool and life-changing experience. And when I got back to England, I then got a job which brought me to the US. So you know, and I've been here 11 years now. So I am currently commiserating the end of Parenthood, which is a TV show here in the US. It's a phenomenal show that really goes through the ups and downs of family life, and it ended last week. So I've actually still got it on my DVR because I know I'm going to have to watch it time and time again, and I may have to revisit the series on Netflix. We also in this house are great fans of the Great British Bake Off, which airs on PBS, and one of the reasons that we love it, I mean, you're watching people bake food that you can't eat, right? And my daughter, whenever they talk about, oh, well, we're going to prove the bread in order to expand the gluten, she goes, boo, gluten. And, you know, it's kind of like one of those good experiences. You know, she's 6, she gets it, and she's like, why are they putting all that dairy in there? Why don't they use something different? And, you know, so it's educating for her. And, you know, we also watch Top Chef for the same reason. And one of my favorite things to do is dive. I started on my round the world trip. I got my diving qualification when in Thailand, and then I dived around the rest of the world, which was phenomenal. But when my daughter was born, I made the decision that it was too much of an extreme sport, and I kind of struggled with, you know, going to the depths of the ocean, knowing that I had a child who was dependent on me. So I cannot wait until she's 8 and she can join me in the water and we can go back out and see the fishies. And I have actually swum with sharks. So it was unbeknown to me at the time. We were told that if you ever saw a shark, you should always be in a buddy system when you're diving. And I kind of looked to my right thinking that's where my dive buddy was, and I looked to my right and it was a 6-foot blue shark, and I was in New Zealand, and I kind of turned to my buddy and we became sort of 9.5 feet so that we looked bigger than it, and we then came up to the surface, maybe a little bit quicker than diving methodology tells you should, but we came up out of the water and everyone said, did you see the shark? And we were like, yep, it was right next to us. So that was fun. And I am a huge football fan, and let me define that as being football as in soccer, but you use your foot, not your hands, which is the American football thing. You know, I watched the Super Bowl. It still eludes me why it's called football, but it is. So I'm a big Arsenal fan. I just love the game, and I am really looking forward to this summer. I'm hoping to take my daughter to her first game, but I think she might be a little bit scared that I might shout in public like I do at the TV. So there's some facts about me.
Well, I think there must be something, unless you say differently, Christina, there's obviously something to do with autoimmunity and travel, because I've traveled quite a lot as well. My husband, like you, Emma, he gave up his job in the city in London, and he went off for a year and did the whole backpacking experience. And afterwards, he couldn't let it go, and so he got me involved as well. So the job that I was having at the time, I was lucky enough to be able to work, and then take a month off all at once. And so we had several sabbaticals. So I've traveled through India, through Thailand, Malaysia, quite a few places in Southeast Asia, actually. Where else have I been? I've been to Peru, Ecuador. We honeymooned in the Galapagos Islands, which was amazing. And we also have been to East Africa. We did Kenya, Tanzania, Zaire, and Uganda. And I think it was India. I'm fairly certain, actually, it was India where a lot of my health problems probably stem from. I got so sick in Delhi. I was ill for about 4 or 5 days in Delhi, and I was I was saying to my husband, oh, just shoot me, please, just shoot me. And so he probably regrets it bitterly now, but he obviously didn't because I'm here now. But my favorite place that we traveled to was Zaire. We trekked up into the mountains and saw the mountain gorillas up there. And it was just the most incredible experience. We had an armed guard, which was a bit scary because they had a lot of poaching at the time. But we were told not to approach gorillas, but if they come and approach you, then that's absolutely fine. You just stand still and let it all happen. And we saw this family of gorillas, and one fairly young one came up to my husband, and he had his camera on a strap around his neck, so the actual camera was probably around about stomach level. And this gorilla came up and literally came up to him and started tapping on his camera and on the lens and looking at himself in the lens like this, and it was just amazing. And then all the time, and we were literally right next to it, and then all the time this huge silverback male was about 30 feet away looking at us as if to say, I've got my eye on you. But thankfully he didn't come close. But that was the most amazing experience I've had with traveling. Let's see, some people might not like me for this, I don't know, but my favorite singer, musician is Michael Bublé. I am absolutely crazy about Michael Bublé, and he just happens to live in Vancouver, so I trawl around the streets. Actually, I don't, that's just a joke, maybe I should do. Searching for Michael Bublé, and my son bought me his CD for Christmas, and I think it was the biggest regret he's ever had because I'm still playing it now. And he retreats to his bedroom and says, will you please just stop the Bublé? I don't watch any TV. I'm sorry, Canada, but you just can't give me any decent program. It's the constant adverts every 15, 20 minutes. I'm not putting up with that. So what we do is we get our computer out and we log in to British TV, because you can't beat British TV. And my favourite program, which is only once a year, is the UK Apprentice. And I know you have an American edition. I don't know. Do you have that down in Australia, Rory?
We do, yes.
You do. Is it an Australian version, or is it the British one with Alan Sugar?
We've got all three, actually. The UK one, and then the US one with Donald Trump, and then there's an Australian one with I don't know who.
Okay. Well, I love The Apprentice, and so we've been catching up on that. So, but apart from that, I'm not watching TV. What's my guilty pleasure? My guilty pleasure, I shouldn't tell you this being AIP, but it's dates, as in the medjool type.
Yeah.
But they absolutely give me so much pleasure, but I feel very guilty when I've eaten them, and they certainly don't like me. My hidden talent is I sew and I knit. I'm a very crafty person. I like to create things. And so not only, I don't do it anymore for my daughter because she's into leggings and t-shirts and all that lot, but I used to make all her dresses, and she used to have such pretty little things. And I make her I used to make a lot of clothes myself as well, but I don't. I live in the kitchen now. I barely leave it. And I used to make vintage jewelry. I collected glass, vintage and antique stones, and made it into jewelry. And I had an online shop, and I was selling that. And I got some of my work featured in a prominent UK magazine, and I was really excited. But then 2 months later, we packed up and left. So that was that. It's all food now. I tend to go from one creative thing to another. So I'm in a food phase right now. So I hope it lasts. And something, thank you. That's very sweet. And another thing is I really want to learn photography. I've never done photography before, but since my blog, I've really got into it, and I'm so keen. I want to do a course actually, because that's just captivated me actually. I'm so excited about photography, and I really want to learn a lot more.
I'm going to agree with your travel theory. I got degrees in psychology and history, and I pretty much chose those two subjects because I could get them very quickly and graduate very quickly so that I would be qualified to be an ESL teacher overseas. That was pretty much the only job I ever wanted. Unfortunately, I was mistakenly diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about a month before I graduated, and just 2 weeks before a job interview in Japan. And that kind of put the brakes on that train. So I thought, if I have MS, I'm not going to be leaving the country anytime soon. I need to figure this out first. And by the time I actually figured out that it wasn't MS, it was celiac disease, and got on the AIP and actually started feeling better, it had been like 4 years, and I had already settled down here. And now I have this job that I absolutely love with Sarah. I have no regrets, but it was, that was my whole plan, was to travel the globe teaching English in Asia and South America and anywhere that would have me. And I've not gotten to do any traveling since then, but I'm still young, so I'm hoping that's in my near future. My dream job as a kid was always to be a rock star. I love music. I love lyrics. I love melodies and just the stories people can tell and the crazy sounds all these creative people can make. I can get lost in it. I love it so much. But I'm tone deaf. And every time I have tried to learn an instrument or singing or anything like that, it just ends in tears and frustration. I think that's why I love music so much. It's a complete mystery to me. I can't figure it out. And I'm so impressed with people who have those skills and can make just beautiful things with them. I also used to do theater and improv comedy back in the day. And I got into it as a way to kind of challenge my social anxiety, which was really bad. Like, I would just seize up like when confronted with strangers, and it was horrible. Strangely enough, I didn't actually have stage fright, and I totally loved the stage and improv and just hanging out and having fun and making a fool of myself. And I still had social anxiety after that. So I don't know what it was. I guess in real life you don't get a script and you don't have a license to just do whatever crazy thing comes into your head like you do when you're doing improv. But it was a lot of fun, and I miss it a lot. I'm not fluent in any other languages, mostly because I don't have much opportunity to practice any of them, but I studied a lot of them in school, a lot. And I was obsessed with the really obscure ones, like Russian and Finnish and Gaelic. And I took Latin and Chinese, and it's just one of those hobbies that I really took for granted back when I was younger, and I had the time to really just lose myself in studies for a couple of hours. And I really wish I still had time for that as an adult. It's just so much fun. I think it's the same thing with music. I love all the different sounds people can make and figuring out words and phonetics and stuff. Finally, I am and always have been a huge bookworm. My favorite series is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Which is kind of a cross between fantasy and sci-fi and historical fiction. It's got like everything I love right there in it. And I really wanted to like Game of Thrones. I love the TV show, Rory. I am right there with you. I can't wait till April. It's so exciting. I love it. But the books, oh my gosh, I read them when they came out, and I'm going to read the future ones too. But I am a huge editor. I love proofreading stuff. I love ripping things apart and like making them better and polishing them. And with really wordy authors like George, I find myself thinking, like, every paragraph, that could have been cut. We could cut that too. And it's just, see, as a kid, I loved the mental exercise of it. But as an adult, I just feel like I have too many things on my plate to sit there and be like constantly distracted by like wanting to change something that should be totally fun and relaxing. I want to thank all of you for joining me just right here and right now for this episode, but also for the long haul as co-host. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see everything that you guys are going to do and listen to all of your discussions that you're going to have. I'm so excited, and I'm so grateful to you guys for being a part of this with me. Our next episode is going to be hosted by Emma. She'll be talking with some really fantastic guests about staying motivated, so I hope everyone will come back and check that out when it's on YouTube. It means so much to me to connect to other people. I want to thank everybody for watching and sharing their comments on what we talk about. It just means so much to all of us, I think, to be able to connect to other people that have been there and know what we're going through and are also looking for better solutions and trying to figure things out, and just can relate with this whole crazy thing. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.